Okay, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. John here from Home Inspection Authority, and I got to give a warning, a major warning here. This is a listener and viewer discretion advised. This episode is not intended for the weak or squeamish. So if you are weak or squeamish, we're done. All right, so that was my little, dramatic buildup for the four-letter word, mold. We're going to talk about mold today, and my guest today is Bret Pfeifer of Golden State Mold Inspections. What's up, Bret?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm doing good.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. I ran into a few times recently.
Yeah.
And you work with some of the, what I consider the higher-end realtors like I do.
Yeah.
So that tells me something about you right off the bat, because those guys are very fussy.
Yes.
And they're picky with what inspectors they use. So, I noticed you were kind of quiet at first when I first met you, but I started talking to you and you started loosening up a little bit. I'm like, okay, this guy's all right.
Yeah.
He talks.
It takes me a little bit of time to get talking.
Yeah. So I have been just always entertained by my customers when I have to tell them there's, water stains or moisture stains. You can call them whatever you want. They're just stains,
Right.
Because a lot of the home buyers that I deal with are just scared easily.
Yeah.
They panic. And I am not an alarmist type inspector.
Right.
I explain stuff with this tone of voice right here. Well, ma'am, you don't have any rain gutters on the house. And then, oh, by the way, you have foundation cracks.
Right.
I don't go, oh my God, you have foundation
The house
cracks.
is going to fall down.
Boom. It's like, I don't do that. So I know it's not me.
Right.
But honestly, I think people watch too much HDTV.
They do, and they just hear stories. Their cousin had some issue, and it cost thousands of dollars. The daughter got sick.
Yeah.
So it just gets that's the situation with everything when it comes down to water or mold.
Right.
That's what happens, in the psyche.
So before we really get into some serious straight talk about this mold, I want you to give me you got a cool little backstory. Tell me your little backstory you have.
All right. So how I got in, well, first, like I said, like you mentioned, Bret Pfeifer, I'm Golden State Mold Inspections.
Yeah.
So I started the company back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I was working in real estate. I've had a real estate license since like 2004, 18 years or so.
Oh, wow.
And after the financial meltdown, I worked with an investment company.
Right.
We were buying and selling properties, rehabbing them. And we went to a seminar and they were talking about mold inspections and how they can be used to help negotiate price and how, and I just thought of it as this is just another due diligence part that we can take when we're purchasing properties.
Right.
So I got certified for mold inspections in order to help our investment group out. Mm-hmm. And, nothing really came from it because at that point we started fading out a little bit. But I knew a lot of real estate agents, and through our little network, I got an email from one saying, does anybody know anybody that can test for mold? And I said, well, yeah, I can. I'm certified.
There you go.
Yeah. How much? I'm like,
One-stop shop.
Yeah. So after I did this for him, I thought, I know so many real estate agents. I could help this out and make some side money on this.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And like I said, the investment side was kind of fading out at that point. We were buying less properties as, things started happening. So anyways, I just started Golden State Mold Inspections as a DBA, got my contact database together and just started sending out little email blasts, letting people know that I do this. And it just started just like that. I do one a month. Then that turned into 2 a month, and then 3 a month. And then as it started just building and building, I got the experience. I got, the know-how. I started building more contacts.
Yeah.
And it just completely snowballed. And I'd say over the last 6 years or so, it became full-time. That's what I do now.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. 2015 was really busy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that year. It just... like a rocket.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy so that goes for, look, it doesn't matter if the house is for sale or not for sale, it's still going to have mold problems.
Right.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Leaks equal mold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
So was that your backstory? Yep. And that led you into what you're doing now.
Yeah. And that just came, Golden State Mold Inspections. And now I'm, been very, very fortunate to have the contacts that I've made, and just the way it works, you do a good job for one agent, they tell their friends, and then they tell their friends, and it just snowballs, and you gain the knowledge and the expertise to really validate your professionalism and your
So you're a one-man operation, right?
Yep, one-man battery.
Same here, man. And now I'm doing podcasts, YouTube channel. I'm awesome. A busy guy.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's good stuff. I love being self-employed. How about you?
Oh, it's great. It's great. Can't beat it.
I love it. I advertise just enough where I stay busy enough, and I'd rather turn down work than look for work.
Yeah, I mean, I work every day, and I'll work as long as I'm getting calls, and they're there. Yeah. I try and get there same day or next day.
Yeah.
But with that, I'll have a day where there's nothing going on, so I go fishing.
That's your vacation day.
Yeah, that's my vacation day.
Enjoy it.
And I'm able to set that aside and prepare for that too, where I let my contacts know, hey, I'm going to be out of town for the next 4 days. If you need anything, let me know. Because clearances, we'll get into that later, but there's some things that
have to
we we already know that you can work the schedule around it, but being self-employed, you can't beat it.
Exactly. So the word mold.
Yeah.
I think it's spelled MOLD. Am I right?
Yeah.
That's about right. Okay. So this word, the mold panic initial reactions from customers, I really should start recording those.
Yeah.
Before I start talking, because I could make one hell of a blooper reel.
Yeah.
It would be hysterical. So some of the questions I get are, and you can add to this, of course, whether it's a client or a realtor, oh my God, are you serious? Is that expensive? And what kind of mold is it? And last but not least, can I put bleach on it?
Right.
Okay, so my response to that is, you can put bleach on anything you like.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna cure the problem you have.
Right.
If you have a little bit of black mold around your caulking on your bathtub because you're not cleaning it regularly enough, and you're just being dirty.
Yeah.
Well, then that's what you put bleach on. You can probably scrape, get it off there with that. Yeah. It's a good scrubbing, but that's not how you cure mold.
Right.
So you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah. I mean, just to their initial reactions, oh my God, are you serious? Well, we don't know yet. We have to get it checked out.
Yep.
Because just because there's water intrusion or water stain doesn't mean that there's mold.
Right.
And just because there's mold doesn't mean that it's significant and that it's going to cause a health problem.
Right.
We have to find out what the extent of it is and is it dangerous? And like you said, what kind of mold is it? We can't tell by looking at it. I get calls all the time. I have black mold in my bathroom. Oh, who tested that for you? Right? Because it
was an eye test.
Yeah. So you can't tell just by looking at it. You have to take a sample, and more than likely there's going to be several different types of mold there. So you have to test it to see what's going on. And then, like you said, with putting bleach on it, you can put bleach on anything, but if you don't get to the root of the problem, you're not going to solve it. And bleach is fine. It kills mold. The US EPA says 25% bleach to water is adequate enough to kill the mold. But you don't just spray it with bleach and call it a day.
Right.
You got to properly clean it, and there's a process.
Sure.
So, I get the same reactions, and it is not just a yes or no.
Right.
And here it is. No, we got to look at it. Could be a problem. It could not be.
So can you explain that process for what we just mentioned?
Yeah. So a lot of my inspections do come from follow inspections, from general inspections like yourself. Yeah. I do full mold inspections of the entire home, but a lot of them are, my general inspector called out this area, so we need to have you come check that. So let's just start with that. So my process is I'm going to assess the area, and my main tool is going to be the moisture meters, because mold is going to grow because of two reasons: excess moisture and or poor ventilation. Moisture is the number one cause. That's going to be the main reasons why.
Sure.
So I want to see, first off, is this wet? Is this just a water stain that happened who knows how long ago and it's completely dry? Because one thing I tell clients all the time is that water stains happen. I'm going to have a water stain in the future. You're going to have not a water stain, a water leak in the future.
Yeah,
They just happen.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick on that. So what people mostly don't think of, let me I'll just say think of, that they don't typically think of, well, the house I'm buying is 50 years old. So do you really think there was never going to be a leak there? And that only comes along with just because you can buy a home doesn't mean you understand a home.
Right.
So like when my customers show up, I don't expect them to understand what I'm saying.
Right.
If I was to expect my buyers to understand what I'm doing, I'm in the wrong business.
Right.
Because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Very few of my customers are savvy to what's going on. They understand the difference between water supply pipe, drain pipe. This comes up all the time. I'll be explaining a problem to realtors and the buyers and anyone else that's in front of me. And I'll be saying, okay, so we get two types of pipes, water supply, which is pressurized, and drain, which is not. We have a leak at our drain pipe. Oh, is that coming from under the bathroom sink, or is it copper or galvanized? I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. I just told you. It's the drain, not that. And it's usually the realtors who are just in a panic. Oh shit, now they got to deal with this. Look, I get it. Your realtors are in the sales business.
Right.
They don't want to hear bad news. And trust me, realtors, I don't like giving bad news, but it's part of the job.
Yeah.
So basically, most of the time when we talk about water stains or visible water damage, because a lot of times it's just neglect. The thing's been leaking for months and no one even bothered fixing it, which I'll show you pictures of something soon, a little later on in the podcast. So that's basically where everything starts to fall apart. Because they don't realize that an old house has had leaks.
Right.
A new house is going to have leaks eventually because everything wears out over time. Like a home between, a good gauge for me, a home between 10 to 15 years old is going to start having issues with faucets, fixtures, toilets, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if that regulator wears out even faster, those things are going to happen even faster.
Right.
So that's where I find problems, and that's where you come in.
Right.
So I just wanted to touch on
Yeah,
that.
so I'm going to be using moisture meters to see, first off, is it wet? Right. Because if it's wet, I'm looking at an active water leak. And then whether it's wet or not, I'm going to be trying to determine how that stain or active moisture got there. Is it a supply line or is it a waste line? Supply lines tend to be worse because, like you said, that's a pressurized line. Same, like, think of your sink. You turn your faucet on, water comes out. That line is always pressurized, so whether that opening comes from you turning the faucet on or you put a hole in it, water is going to be constantly coming out of it.
Pinhole leaks.
Exactly. Where a drain line only gets a leak when it's being used,
Right.
as water's flowing through that. So I want to determine what their water source is because, aside from the mold part of it, you have to stop that. You have to stop the leak from coming before you can really address it seriously, because you can clean the mold all you want, like you said, put bleach on it, but if that gets wet again, then it's going to have mold.
You got to stop the bleeding.
You got to stop the bleeding. So I'm looking for the moisture to try and determine the source of the moisture. Then I'm looking for mold, the extent of the mold, and of course I got to take a sample to determine what type of mold it is, because there's thousands of different types of molds and a handful that are potentially harmful.
But of course, you're an encyclopedia and you know all those things, right? I'm not. How do you call it? What do you call black mold? Stachybotrys?
Stachybotrys.
That's the only one I can remember.
Yeah, that's the important one.
And that's the one that everyone's like, black mold.
Yeah.
Black mold.
Yeah.
There it is again.
Yeah.
That word mold. Every time, I'm going to push that button every time we use the word mold from now on. Okay. So, all right. So, talking about the reactions, you good on that?
Yeah.
I think we covered that.
Yeah.
So it's the reactions that tend to send the conversation into a rabbit hole.
Yeah. But, sorry.
And that just makes me sad.
Yeah.
Because I might have had a long week already and my brain is drained from all the people I've dealt with already. And now I got this one yelling out this one's yelling out that. And I got to, okay, now I got to be the referee and go, everybody stop. Please stop. Your panic is not helping. I'm trying to explain this to you, but I can't do that if you're all interrupting each other and me.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get through this and explain it to you. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the time to look up the definition of process.
Yeah.
Process, a series of actions or steps such as 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, to achieve a particular end. So when a mold inspector gets involved, or if there's mold found, or if there's stains found and it needs further evaluation, which is my words to my customers, you need further evaluation before the end of your inspection contingency period in escrow.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm saying you have a person such as Bret come over, or somebody else you know. I actually do mold inspections too. Sometimes if I have the time, I can take that extra step, and it's a different service I offer.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the time, I don't mind doing it. But that's step number one, is to get the initial problem investigated,
Right.
which inspected.
Right.
And after the inspection, well, the inspector's going to let you know, well, it's currently wet or it's not wet. There may be other factors going on inside the house that he thinks may be causing this, like no bathroom ventilation, no windows in the bathroom, tons of staining on the ceilings. It's probably a good cause of stuff that can give you that nasty wet dog smell,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that,
Mm-hmm.
that nasty mold smell. And then once the process, you know, once that's determined, if there's actual moisture, well, then now the inspector is going to try to find the source of the leak.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's pretty simple to find. Sometimes it's just a bathroom faucet that's just been dripping for months and everyone just keeps ignoring it because it's underneath the sinks filled with storage.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be something inside the wall, like a pinhole leak. I've found some really interesting leaks in houses over the years.
Yeah.
I got some great stories about that we'll get into. But so then that would be once the, now if there is visible mold, or you take air samples,
Mm-hmm.
and a lab analysis comes back that, you know what, there's an issue,
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem. So now you're talking about, you have to now write up a scope of work
Right.
to get the remediation done.
Yep.
Because remediation contractors are not going to do anything until they know what they're dealing with,
Right.
which means, what I mean by that is what kind of mold it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people that can tell us that is the lab.
Yep.
So the lab has got to do their job. So the inspector did his job. He sends stuff to the lab. That's number 2. If the lab results come back positive for the presence of mold, well, then now we're going into step 3,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be getting a mold remediation contractor there, give him all the paperwork the mold inspector has given you, as well as the lab results. And then they're going to come over and quote it. Are they going to quote it at that point?
Yeah. So there's one little step in between.
Okay.
There. One is going to be, it's going to be my report, because my report is going to be based on my visual findings, my moisture readings,
Right.
and then also the lab. And my report is going to have the scope of work for the remediation
Yep.
company. So that's really important, because those are the instructions for the remediation company.
Mhm.
I don't do remediation. I only do the inspections.
Right. And now why would that be?
Conflict of interest.
Bias.
How many times I've done inspections where the house needs to be vacated for 2 months and it's going to cost $80,000, where it turns out, it's just
wow.
a $1,500 job.
Wow.
That doesn't require anything.
Wow.
Happens all the time. And I look at it, well, you had the remediation company do your mold inspection for
Yeah.
you. And they're using the scare factor to...
It's the scare factor.
Yep, exactly. So very important to keep the...
There it is again.
Yeah.
The scare factor.
Yep.
Okay.
Use it. Very important to keep it separate,
Yeah.
because I'm prescribing the work. I don't,
Right.
I mean, I want you to use a a professional certified remediation contractor.
Right.
I don't care who it is, as long as they follow my steps.
Yep.
It's going to be fine. So yes, then it goes to the mold remediation contractor.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give you a bid based on my scope of work.
Right. Okay. So now, once the mold remediation is done, so what is? Why don't you explain what mold remediation means
Okay. So mold remediation.
to the layman's person?
Yeah. Mold remediation is, obviously you have mold, and we have the scope of work that is going to tell you not only how to properly clean the mold and how to clean it safely, but what needs to be done to ensure that it doesn't come back, right? So that's cutting out the materials, that's repairing
materials such as drywall, could be wood framing, maybe
baseboard.
Baseboard framing might be beyond repair. You might have to replace a couple framing members.
Yep, and cabinetry, anything that is basically, if it's not some sort of granite or concrete, if it's porous and can absorb moisture, that's a material that can be affected because we want to get those wet materials out of there.
Right.
Need to make sure it's cleaned safely and the source of water is properly repaired. So the big thing with the remediation and what's going to make it a little bit more costly is the containment.
Right.
And what a containment is it's basically an isolation. You plastic off the room with a thick plastic. The remediation contractor is going to enter the room through a zipper. So that way, when they're demoing the materials, that mold's going to be kicked.
Not the zipper on your pants.
Right.
A really tall zipper, it's like 6 feet high, so you can get in and out of the area and keep everything contained.
Yeah, and furthermore with that, they're going to set up a fan system in there. It's called negative air. So if there's any holes or when they open that zipper, the air comes into the containment, not out.
Right.
Because when they're demoing that material that has that mold on it, that mold is just getting dispersed into the air, and it is
right. And what's that machine called for the negative air?
You can use the HEPA filter air scrubbers,
okay. Yep.
but those are more to clean. They do use those, but it's more of a matter of making negative air inside. So the pressure inside, basically they'd use a duct and it goes like to a window so that the air would go into the containment if there was a breach in it.
Got it. Okay.
Right? Because when they're like I said, they're demoing it, it's going into the air, so you don't want that dispersing through the house.
Right.
Right. They're going to take the material out in a bag.
Because somebody might walk by and sneeze.
Right.
I think some of it's a bit over the top, but
well, I mean,
I understand
if there's situations where it's pretty bad. I think we'll see some pictures of that. And if there's a bed, if it's in the 2 adjacent bedrooms, then you got to make sure that whoever's sleeping in it isn't going to be exposed to it for a prolonged amount of time. And then they're going to do all the steps, and they have to clean the air inside the containment using the HEPA filter air scrubbers.
Right.
Basically, they're going to run those machines to pull all that air through that and filter all the mold spores that got kicked up into the air.
Right.
That's the last step of the remediation.
Right.
Before I come back.
Right. So that would be step 4 so far.
Yes.
Step 5 would be you doing clearance.
You doing clearance. So this is, and it's very important. I even put a note at the scope of work that says, obtain mold clearance before replacing material, removing containment and replacing materials.
Yep.
Because I want to go. The clearance is a visual inspection by me to make sure that the work was done properly. Moisture test readings are at acceptable levels.
Right.
There's no visible mold, and it's done as to my scope of work. And then just to verify that, I'm going to take air samples just for verification of that. And my certification basically certifies that the work was done properly.
And do you take 2 inside the containment?
Depends on the size of the containment. So normally it's 1 in the containment, and then you do a control sample outside.
Right. Okay. So I hope that simplifies things a little more. Now, the stuff in between all that I want to make clear of, and what makes this such a big undertaking is, for example, if you've got granite countertops in a kitchen, and this kitchen, I've seen this, where a kitchen was completely remodeled, and I showed up, and the whole back wall underneath that counter, behind all those cabinets, was saturated with growth.
Yep.
It was everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the hell? And it turns out the house was vacant for a while, and there was a slow leak coming from under the sink. Mm-hmm. No one's there to notice it. It just went on for months and months, and so literally what you have to do is remove those countertops, remove all those cabinets to get to that back wall, because that's where the damage is.
Yep.
There's no way around that.
No.
And that's what takes so long, and that's why it costs so much money. You're literally unbuilding a kitchen
Yep.
and then rebuilding it again. That's why these costs can be so high.
Right.
And that's the part that people really have a hard time grasping.
Yeah, and that's if those cabinets are salvageable.
True.
Sometimes they have to be completely replaced, and
Yep.
you're talking about a $15,000 kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
Easy.
I tell clients all the time, because one of the big contributor to that also, besides the slow leak, is the grout at the backsplash behind the sink.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's the number one problem.
Yeah, I tell clients it's cracking back here. It seems like nothing, but what you don't realize is that every day you're doing dishes and a little bit of water splashes back there. Every single day, drip, and it gets to the drywall, the wall covering behind that. And drywall is like a sponge. It just gets wet and it gets soaked and it grows mold. And you don't realize it until you're cleaning out your sink cabinet, because you realize you have, too many cleaning supplies in there, and you notice a strong smell and odor there. I look at that. The only way to access that, cabinets have to come out.
That's it.
$4 little tube of silicone.
That's right.
For caulking will save you thousands of dollars if you just maintain that little backsplash there. But yeah, it gets
really
bad.
Expensive. It gets really bad. And understand, for those of you who are not familiar with drywall, drywall has a crushed stone, basically, a really fine stone in the middle. And what holds it together is pieces of paper on the backside and the front side. So that's something mold loves to eat. Mm-hmm. And it's paper. It gets wet. And sure, it gets stained. But that's what it is. But the problem is the drywall is on both sides of the wall, and then you get those cabinets right up against one side of that drywall, and that's where the affected area is. Mm-hmm. And that is the reason it costs so much money, and it's so time-consuming, and it has to be done in a process.
Yeah.
Process is the word for today.
Yeah.
Aside from the mold word. Well, there it is again. All right. So that kind of covers the process, I believe.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. I think for the first step of the process, when there's a sign of an issue, don't panic. I
Buying a home, don't panic.
Just noticed that. Because
by the way, I got your shirt. It's sitting over there.
Because you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is till you get inspected.
Right.
I was at a high-rise penthouse over in off Wilshire the other day. They thought they were looking at a complete demo of a bathroom, going to cost them $35,000 just for that.
Yeah.
Turns out they have to remove 12 inches of baseboard, and that's it. So you don't know. And then also, and it happens quite a bit with landlords, because they don't want it. Don't want a problem. And they call me
slumlords,
yeah, where they call me, the tenant's saying there's a problem, but it's nothing. And I call them, this is a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So don't panic, because you don't know what it is until you get it checked out. Be proactive. Don't let it go. But let's find out what it is before making assumptions. So step one, be calm.
So the reason why I want to talk about doing remediation yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do it unless it's a really tiny area. I mean, if you're in your garage and you see you got 2 feet of drywall that has mold on it, just cut it open and rip it off and throw it in the trash, and you're probably done. Mm-hmm. But I've been called to come in and do air samples. I had this one guy call me a couple of years ago, and I said, okay, so why do you want me to come over? I always like to get a little backstory so I know what to expect, And he said, well, I moved in, there was a real musty odor. My home inspector said there was probably a mold issue here, and I should get someone to come over. And he didn't say that he tried to fix it himself. He conveniently left that part out.
Right.
So I show up. And sure, he had some containment. He had some plastic hanging up, nothing zipped or anything.
Yeah.
No machines in there. He had regular fans, like that fan on the floor over there. All right. And so I'm like, this is interesting. So I start slowly picking at him, going, okay, so how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did this get taken apart? Who did this?
Right.
And he finally broke down and said, okay, well, I tried to remediate it myself. His samples came back and they were horrible. Mm-hmm. He didn't do it right. He's like, oh man, he spent so much time trying to save money. Mm-hmm. And all he did was cost himself more money by spending more time trying to do it again. So he probably called someone to come in and handle it after I left. But he had me come in to do a clearance.
Yeah.
And
didn't go well.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So he didn't pull anything apart, really. He didn't take the cabinets out. The air samples were horrible.
Right.
all the visible stuff was gone, but the air samples were haulable. So I wouldn't attempt to do this yourself if it's a big infected area.
Yeah. If my report says containment protocol, like I said, build a containment, don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
If I'm recommending, a surface cleaning and maybe cutting out a little bit of drywall, but then,
right.
It's debatable, but containment, don't do it yourself. Or don't
That's
use
good advice.
Don't use somebody that's a professional.
Look, things cost money, unfortunately. So if you want to avoid mold, do some yearly routine visual inspections under your sinks, in any kind of like around your water heater, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It will save you thousands.
Mm-hmm.
If you have tenants, I have a few investment properties, so I do have tenants, and I encourage them to call me if there's a problem before it turns into a huge problem.
Yeah,
and they do. But what I get when I do multi-unit buildings, when I'm inspecting multi-unit apartment buildings and stuff like that, is I'll look at the tenant and go, "Did you not know that was there?" "No, I did know it was there." "Well, why didn't you call your landlord?" "Well, they're going to raise my rent." They always think they're going to get their rent raised. So if you're not that kind of a slumlord and you're not going to raise their rent just to fix something, let them know.
Yeah.
Because that's why this thing has gotten out of hand, and now you're trying to sell the property. Obviously, that's why I'm there.
Right.
Because someone's trying to buy it.
Yeah.
And now I got to tell you and the buyer, hey, man, you got a problem here. You're looking at ripping out cabinets, ripping out complete bathrooms. It's just the way it is. Just yesterday, not yesterday, before yesterday, I did a manufactured home. And I know what to look for in a manufactured home. Under the bathrooms, under the water heater, typically is where all the damage is. Sure enough, the shower surround had holes in it, vertical cracks. It would almost look like paneling. It was like a paneling inside the shower that when it broke open, it kind of looked like that's what it was. And it had a lot of paint on. I'm like, what the hell is this? I get underneath, and the drain pipe was completely rotted away.
Oh, man.
So not only were the surround walls leaking, and I did see a lot of past water damage. Looks like I'm pretty sure I saw some hints of mold growing behind the water heater. And that was all on the opposite side of the wall where the shower was. So it's all connected. And I was like, that could have been avoided.
Right.
All that could have been avoided. Yeah. That drain pipe was literally rotted away by like 6 inches at the bottom of it. It was completely gone. It wasn't even there. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So a little bit of, preventative maintenance will take you a long way. And that's what home ownership is, especially if you have a apartment building or a duplex. Don't ignore it, man, because it's not going to get better. It's just going to get worse.
Never fixes itself.
Right. The best advice I'll give you, and let your tenants know, make sure they know, to call you if there's a problem so you can get on top of it, man, because this is really unnecessary, most of it.
A $500 repair can easily turn into a $10,000 remediation job if it's not addressed. So the faster it's addressed, the less it's going to cost.
All right. So so on your mold inspections, are you specific to one area of the building? Do you do outside, inside, crawl spaces, attic? How do you take it, and what dictates that?
So there's two types of mold inspections. One is what we just talked about was specific area inspection, partial inspection.
Okay.
General inspector, bathroom sink, looks like there's some potential mold growth or water damage.
Right.
I'll come check that specific area. The times that you see me at inspections, those are general home mold inspections where I'm starting on the outside. I'm looking for poor drainage, building defects, cracks, holes, deflections, anything that's going to let water into the house.
Sure.
Then I go through the entire inside of the home, looking for at those areas, not only at those areas, but everywhere, for high moisture readings, poor ventilation, signs of mold, using moisture meters, thermal imaging, going through everything, crawl spaces, attics, everywhere. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you have different service calls, in other words.
Yeah, the two main types, specific area, three main, specific area, general, home for mold, and then the clearance.
And the clearance.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you're going out for one of those three typically.
Yeah. Yeah, for most buyers, they get the full home inspection, full home mold inspection,
right?
Just to make sure of just anything. Because I'm in there with specialty tools, and a lot of as a general inspector, correct me if I'm wrong, you are looking for water intrusion for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And mold because of that. But our process for how we're going about the building does differ, right?
Well, yeah, we could talk about that now, actually. The difference between Bret and myself as far as doing inspections is I'm not walking around the house with moisture meters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that as a home inspector. I'm doing a visual only. I'm not using crazy tools. Sure, I might use a infrared gun if I think I need to, just like I'd use a screwdriver if I think I needed to. I mean, I am the guy with the fancy tools. I'll admit that. I do like having nice tools. Buy nice or buy twice.
Yeah.
That's what I say. So we're going to get into tools shortly here in a minute. But as far as our differences, that's the main difference.
Yeah.
We're looking for the same things.
Right.
But how you go about it is a bit different than I would. Like I actually get on roofs. You probably don't.
I do if it's
walkable.
Walkable. I'm not. Yeah.
Okay.
Walkable, accessible. Yeah. I'm looking at flashings, just general.
Okay,
damage,
so you do that. Okay, I was curious about that. So good to hear. A lot of homes that I do, the word is traverse. They're not traversable. I'm trying to be specific and professional right now. I can't get on your damn roof.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. I'm not going to risk my neck for a few $100.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah.
So guess what? I bought a drone. So I just use a drone, and it can tell me a lot. Because don't forget, after I use the drone, I'm actually going to go in your attic, and I'm going to look to see if the vent stack pipes have stains all around the plywood, and the sheathing and everything. And so there's other ways of telling if you have or had moisture intrusion just by looking in certain areas. And, it just comes with the experience of doing it. I mean, roofs deflect water. That's what they're for. If there's a hole in your roof, well, guess what? You're going to have water coming in. Where's it coming in? To be determined.
Right.
For example, let's talk real quick about a job. You and I were on the same job about I think that was January. I think it was the beginning of the year. And that was for realtor from Amalfi Estates, Brian. Yeah. And I noticed it had the dome, big dome. Remember that? And then up in the attic, I was like, hey, I don't know if you're going up in the attic, but there's a lot of stains around that dome from where that roof met the dome itself. And, when I used to build houses, we used to build stuff like that. That is no easy task to take a sloped roof and then build a dome and then flash it properly.
You're right. Yeah.
That is the toughest part of that job, is keeping it watertight. And that particular house we were on, that paper underneath had failed or the flashing had failed, but you couldn't traverse that roof.
Right.
But I did take a lot of good photos, and I didn't see anything really, really bad in that area. So that tells me it's probably the underlayment that was causing that leak. But it was pretty thick leak. I mean, not thick, but pretty heavy in a big area.
Yeah, it looked like it had been going on for some time too.
Yeah.
It was
and I noticed it inside the wall too.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did too. Yeah.
It was top of the entry.
Yep. And guess how I found that? This guy.
Yeah.
This is, aside from my brain, this is my best tool every day. Flashlights. Bam. You got to have a good flashlight, man.
I went in, 7,000 lumen flashlight.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go under, just in general, just having such a good flashlight, going into a crawl space, I call it the sun.
Yeah.
It lights up the whole thing.
Even white walls.
Yeah.
You believe it or not, I don't have the best eyesight. I'm 56. I'm not 20 anymore. So yeah, I need a flashlight. I do wear glasses, but I'm telling you, you can walk right by a stain on the ceiling if it's all white.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. And my flashlight, I use in every room, I have a little process that I use with my flashlight to try and find leaks that you can't see with your eye or signs of water intrusion. Yeah. And clients ask me all the time, does that light detect mold. No, it's just light.
It's just
and I tell them, what am I doing? I'm standing in the corner and I'm going across, trying to get as parallel with the ceiling as possible.
Yeah.
Because when the building materials get wet, they bubble.
And they can sag.
Yeah. And so you can't see it by looking at it, but when you go across to the flashlight, you'll see little shadows, and it's really, and you can see it. And I go along all walls, and I find a lot of water intrusion that you couldn't normally see with that. And flashlight, I mean, you think everybody has a flashlight. It's one of the best tools.
I see guys pull out flashlights like this big, and they think they're going to inspect the house and find everything that's wrong with it. I don't think so, dude.
The little $2 Harbor Freight ones, or the ones you get with $20 purchase.
You need to upgrade.
Yeah.
This is a Stinger Streamlight. These are fantastic. I do wish they had a rubber base though, because if you drop it, which occasionally we do. And if it drops on like a fancy tile floor, you have a chance of cracking that thing.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah, so I think what I'm going to eventually do is just put some hockey tape around the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
To lessen the impact. So you can still take it on and off.
Yeah. I put a death grip on my flashlight when I'm going up a ladder and I'm on like a marble floor or something.
Death grip. The death grip. Yeah. All right. And another tool I don't know what you use, but I used a protometer.
Yeah, is that one pronged?
Yep.
Yeah.
It does the
pronged, that's most important.
Yeah.
For the meters. I use two different ones. I see you get the hydrometer.
Yeah, this is I did a lot of research on them. It's expensive, but like I said, I just my whole life I've always just bought what I think it might be the best in that category of a tool, only because I feel better about giving people information using a much better tool. I've had cheaper tools fail, and one guy, I was a GFCI tester. I was testing outlets, and the first couple I tested were okay. And then all of a sudden, as I kept on going through the apartment, I'm getting all these weird readings.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, well, maybe my tester just failed. Didn't even cross my mind. I said, hey, you know what? These ones were okay, but you should have these ones looked at. So the guy called an electrician. Electrician come out, he said, no, everything's good. He goes, I'll call your inspector. His device probably failed and he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
So he called me. He goes, do you mind? I had to pay the guy $60 for do you mind reimbursement? No problem at all. So I wrote him a check and just paid him because something I just didn't think of, at the time. But shit happens.
Yeah.
But like I said, tools are very important, and trying to buy a tool just to have a tool, I think is just not a good step forward.
Yeah. I think with moisture meters, aside from myself, when I'm looking at other people's opinions or report, I don't really try and go and analyze other people's mold inspection reports, but general inspectors' reports that note something, they use their moisture meter.
Right.
I want to know what type of moisture meter they have, because I come out all the time, and I'm not a charity. I'm a business, right?
Yeah.
I have to come out and I have to be paid for what I'm doing.
Sure.
And I'll tell the client, I'll say, what type of moisture meter is he using? I'm not sure. Was it pronged? No, it's just like this flat thing you put on the wall. I'm like, they're good because they don't make little pinholes on the wall, which we don't try and do, right? But they're very inaccurate, and you don't get the same accuracy as with a pronged like that. Right. And you want to show or talk about what we mean with the pronged?
So the prongs are these two shiny things that you could stab somebody with.
Yeah.
So it's also a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if they could turn this into a stun gun too, that would be the ultimate tool.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to have to write them. That's actually, I just thought of that right now. All right, protometer, if you're listening, you got to turn the MMS2 into the MMS2 plus V for voltage.
Yeah.
So we could turn this into a stun gun as well. This has a lot of different things on it that I don't even use. So like I said, I bought it. It comes in handy. It's like anything else I have. It's a tool. It's got a purpose, and then I put it away.
Yep.
That's all I needed again. So no science behind that. But you brought your FLIR. You want to show us that?
Yeah. So sorry. This is thermal imaging. It takes a second to turn on, but basically, this doesn't detect moisture, but it's a tool to help me detect moisture.
Everybody listen to this. It's important.
Because just think about a beach towel. You have it out, you get half of it wet and half of it dry, they're going to be different temperatures, right? And it's the same thing with building materials. If part of it's wet, it's going to be colder than the rest of it. And it's not telling me that there's moisture there, but I know to use my pronged meter there.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah. So I use this for blanket because I don't want to go and, because like I said, those put little teeny, they're not really visible, but they're pronged, right? They have to put a little pinhole in there. So I don't want to go through your whole home and put little pinholes. So I'll use this in blanketed areas to try and see if there's anything there. I just found a property. It was a closet above. There was no bathroom above. It was the first level. So there was another, level above. So it wouldn't have been a roof leak, wouldn't have been a plumbing leak, but the whole ceiling was completely saturated. And I found that because of this, and you wouldn't have thought otherwise to look there.
Right.
Unfortunately, you have to cut it out to find out where the water intrusion is,
right.
But it was significantly wet. So I don't know if you can see, but basically it's just going to give you a thermal image of what's happening there.
Yep.
Another useful way of using this that I do is on 2-story homes. I run all the hot water.
Right.
And then I go through the bottom level.
So that's what Bret looks like under the gun.
So yeah, I run all the hot water, and I run it for a while because, like we were talking before about plumbing waste lines,
right.
They're only going to be dripping if the waste line's being used. So run the hot water. If that's dripping, when I use the thermal imaging downstairs, I'll see a hot spot.
Yep.
At the ceiling.
Yep.
Found many leaks that way.
That's a very good way of doing that.
Yeah, because it might not have been long enough or heavy enough for it to cause a discoloration or what we could see with a flashlight. So it's a very good way to detect leaks throughout the house. Very good tool.
Yeah. So the first thing anyone ever says if I pull that out is, oh, does that tell you if there's mold?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that tell you if there's a water leak?
Mm-hmm.
No. It tells me there's an anomaly in there.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you that there's a leak, but I'm telling you there's an anomaly. You have a temperature difference in materials.
Yeah.
Right here's showing that it's, maybe 60 degrees, and a foot away, it's about 80 degrees.
Yeah.
So there's a temperature difference there. Now that could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
That could be a HVAC duct. A home inspector might have been there with you running the air conditioner, and you see this big rectangular thing all going all the way up and down the wall. That's the HVAC ducting.
Yeah, actually, a story about that is I was doing a follow-up inspection from a company, very, very nice house, and they see this house. It's probably $10 million house. These people are willing to pay, so they give this inspection where they were the remediation contractor, of course, saying they need $40,000 worth of work or something like that, and they were using their thermal imaging as proof, and they were saying, see around the can lights, the recessed lightings, how it's a different temperature right there. And I went and I used mine, my own, and I told the homeowner, look, it's a perfect square. There's no insulation right there.
Right.
They removed the insulation. When was the last time you saw a water pool in a square?
Yeah.
So
that's really funny, dude.
Yeah.
That's a good explanation right there.
So like you said,
and then they went.
Yeah. So, like you said, there's a lot of reasons why there could be temperature differences, but so it's not definitive. You have to look further, and you have to use things like that. It's a square, it's a can light there. Yeah. There's been insulation removed. So it's going to have a different temperature.
Yes. So you really, did you get any training on yours? Did you go to any schooling for it or anything like that?
No.
Okay, I did.
Mm-hmm.
I went to an infrared training course. Bill Fabian is the guy that trained me how to use it, and it was good that I did because he brought up some things that you really need to understand how this thing works.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work on reflective surfaces.
Right.
If you're trying to put it on a pipe, you have to wrap it with tape.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to get the correct reading on it because it's just reflective. And we talked about light, and then your customer asked you if your flashlight could detect moisture damage or water.
Mold. Yeah.
Okay. Well, these thermal imaging guns do not use light at all. They have nothing to do with the light spectrum whatsoever. You can be in a room and turn all the lights off and still use that.
Right.
Just as effectively. So there is a little bit of science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really interesting. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm learning something. If I learn one thing from a course, I'm happy.
Right.
Because that's all it takes. Just over time, you build and build and build on that. But so the moral of the story here is the thermal imaging gun does not detect mold. It does not detect moisture. It is a tool that helps you determine if there's moisture.
Right.
It's not the end all say all.
Right.
You always got to follow up with a moisture meter.
Yeah. And just like with mold and moisture doesn't mean mold.
Right.
It's an indication that we need to look at this.
Yeah.
Thermal imaging doesn't mean moisture. It's an indication that we need to go further and use moisture meters. So it's all a process, and putting all these tools together, plus the knowledge of not only mold inspection but construction itself.
Yep.
I think of it as a story of everything that's going on. Right. You know, let's just say there is mold. What's the story behind this mold? Why is this material wet? Mm-hmm. What's making this wet?
Yep.
Where is the potential source of this? Why is that leaking? How is this all happening? And I just put a picture together of everything that's going on using all the tools that I have, plus the general information.
Yeah. Another thing I want to point out too is as far as water, when there's a water leak, whether it's drain pipe or water supply, just because the area above your ceiling is wet, that doesn't mean that's where the water came from. No. That water is always going to go to the lowest point possible. It's called gravity. Mm-hmm. Gravity. That's going to get a buzz too. Gravity is important that you understand it. So it hasn't changed from as far as I know. Water will roll to the lowest point. Mm-hmm. And it'll pool there. It'll just build up and build up and build up if you don't fix anything. So keep that in mind when you find a leak in your house. It doesn't mean that's exactly where the source is coming from.
Right.
It could be, 3-4 feet away.
It could be, if it's
further,
it could be way down. If the ceiling joist, if it's running down the ceiling joist, it could be at the completely opposite side of the room.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Or a vent flashing or something like that, running down a pipe.
It goes.
So, that's some good info, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. Something I wanted to point out to you is how do you spend money on marketing? Do you any kind of marketing for your business?
So I use an email service.
Okay.
And I send out a monthly email blast with information about mold, and obviously my contact information.
Cool.
I do some SEO, but that's about it. But that is there. I do that because I have the database. Anytime I've received an email and handed a business card, seen an email address, and it's a real estate agent, I kept it. And they go into my database,
aha, you're a hoarder. You're an email hoarder.
Right. And they go into my database and, and I market to them. But the majority of my business is all, this person referred me to this person.
Referrals is great.
That's it.
That's a great. The only thing better than that is just doing a good job every time.
Well, that's how you get the referral.
You know what I mean? So I wanted to point this out to you. This is a website called homeinspectionandrepair.com. This person, his name is Dave Weidrich. Pardon me, Dave. I think I said it wrong. Weidrich. Okay, Weidrich. Dave Weidrich. He was apparently listening to the podcast and found it interesting, and he contacted me and asked me to list my company on his new directory. So what he's made is this website called homeinspectionandrepair.com, and home inspectors and contractors around the United States, if they want to list on here, they can just click on the join now. And I believe he's offering a special if you do it. If you sign up soon, you get like 6 months to a year free listing. So just want to point it out to you. It's free. Yeah, check it out. Anybody else listening out there, if you're a home inspector or a contractor, check out this website. It looks like it's very well done. And as you can see, he's already got my got my podcast on this. So I'm a little biased. He's got my little video on here too. He's just a really nice guy. He reached out to me. I called him right back. We started talking, and he said, "What can we do?" I'm like, "Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just talk about each other on my platforms. You put me on your platforms, and we'll get some people, get some energy going on this thing.
Yeah.
Got something going. So anyway, once again, homeinspectionandrepair.com. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. And that's it. All right, so I want to get into some photos here.
All right.
I know you took the time to send me some photos.
Yeah.
Which is good. I love pictures. I actually cleaned up a few of them for you. I went in there and photoshopped a little bit so they're nice and clean. So on this one here, do you remember which one that was?
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of tell me about it.
All right. So this was there's a homeowner that was moving, close of escrow. So terrible time to find mold.
Yeah.
Because they have to disclose it to their buyer. They haven't closed escrow yet. And they moved some cabinets and they found this. And what you don't see is on the other side of this wall is a bathroom.
Okay.
This is actually a post-remediation clearance inspection picture. And this is a situation that we talked about before where they didn't use a remediation contractor to do it. And
I can see all this.
Yeah.
That
and you
should have all been removed.
The water damaged wood there. Yeah. I mean, when I walk into a clearance, because like I said, this is a clearance inspection, I can tell right away whether it's not, whether or not a professional did it or not.
Sure.
I could tell by the grade of the plastic that they use, how they taped it, everything. And then obviously in this case, they didn't follow my instructions. Part of my instructions are to remove building materials to a minimum of 12 to 18, depending on the saturation type of mold. 12 to 18 inches beyond any mold growth, water damage, and high moisture readings.
And that's to make sure there's nothing further.
Exactly. And obviously here, there's still water damage. That's clearly visible. Not only that, at the top left, you could see that there's also mold growth.
Oh, it's obvious.
Yeah.
That's not done.
Right. And the unfortunate thing about this is they were trying to do it in a cost-effective way, but they're at the close of escrow, and they're not getting a clearance from me on this.
Nope.
So now they got to redo the job with a professional remediation contractor. And another important thing is that my clearance inspection, the fee for it isn't for the certificate, it's for the inspection.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yep. So unfortunately, I have to get paid for this, and I have to tell them, you're not getting a clearance certificate out of this, and then I have to pay me to come back and do it again.
Yeah. It's called time.
Yeah, exactly. So, unfortunately, this is a case that didn't pass, and they had to do further work by removing more of the building materials, more of the floor covering, because that floor is completely saturated with water and there's mold growth underneath it that you can't really see from this picture.
And it looks like they should have scrubbed that wood too.
Which they didn't, And so part of it is they scrub it, and then I do recommend to sand it as well.
Sanding, that too. That's what I meant to say, actually. Yep. All right, cool. Let's check out another one. That's good stuff. Is this the same place?
That's the same place. That's just over, and clearly, think about it. How are you going to get mold clearance?
You can't get a mold clearance when you still see mold.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah. So this one, I didn't even take air samples. I took the swab sample just to show, because the clearance is several things. That visual inspection, moisture meter inspection, air sample.
Right.
Passing the air sample.
So everybody listening, just so you know, we are looking at photos on my computer right now, and you can see all of this on the YouTube version of this podcast episode, which is going to be podcast episode 19. So you can view all of the stuff and have fun with us laughing, because that's what we're laughing at.
Yeah. And, with this client and a lot of clients, when this happens, they're not trying to be necessarily, cover up or skirt the system or anything
trying to
like
do it
that.
Right.
They've heard from somebody that is their handyman or something. I'm experiencing this.
Uncle Bob.
Yeah, and they just let them go with it because they're given a price. I've been doing this for years. Not me. They're saying I've been doing it for years, and I'll get it taken care of. Don't even worry about it. They're charging me $3,000. I'll do it for $600, right? And unfortunately, it's just you can't get around it. It has to be done properly. And so this is the same job after they hired a professional remediation contractor.
Yep.
And actually, if you want to go back, and you can see the first picture.
This one?
Yep. That's a containment.
Is that a proper containment?
That's the plastic with the zipper in the middle going through. The other picture, the first one I have of this closet is just the closet. It's just an open closet.
Oh, you just showed up and there it was.
Yeah. So, like I said, right off the bat at that first one, when I didn't see this, I knew it wasn't going to pass.
Yeah.
But this is the follow-up inspection. That picture there.
And this here is a
HEPA filtered air scrubber.
There you go.
So I go into a lot of properties when handyman or somebody that's not qualified, I say run a HEPA filter air scrubber. They take the one from their bedroom that they've been using every night, and they set it there.
I get that a lot from customers. I've been running my humidifier.
Yeah, and I go in there.
Congratulations.
And they say, it's an air purifier. I'm like, no, an air scrubber is an industrial HEPA filter, air scrubber. This thing, if this is in your bedroom and you're trying to sleep, it ain't happening.
Yeah, it's pretty loud.
It's loud. And that's another thing is when I go to do the clearance inspections, because of the isolation, that a lot of times the occupant still lives there.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take to get the results? It takes 2 business days, but those fans don't have to be on anymore. Oh, thank God. They're like, they don't even, at that point, as long as they don't have to listen to those anymore, they're happy. But that is a proper air scrubber right there.
So if you have to do containment protocol for any type of job, you will be inconvenienced.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can expect to have contractors in your house, plastic up there, these noisy machines running 24/7 until was it typically 48 hours?
I recommend to run them 24 to 48 hours, depending on the job. You don't want to run it more than that because those filters clog up and recontaminate.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. But so it is an inconvenience, but it is still safe to be there because they're doing the job in the containment. Because people ask me all the time, do I need to vacate? No, you'll be fine. But there's gonna be some inconvenience to it.
Well,
but this is the picture of that same job done properly.
Yeah. So I mean, you can clearly see it.
Yeah.
So let me leave that picture there and go back to the other one so we can do a comparison. So, here's the wrong way, right here.
Yeah.
And here's the right way.
Yep.
You had this required removal of drywall on both sides of that wall, not just on this picture. They only did one side.
Yeah, and then also you see the floorboards have been removed.
Yep.
You see the dark stains.
See the dark stains over here.
Yeah.
Bam. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
So,
and what I do with the clearance inspection that fail is I give my original scope of work and I put in bold, because it's going to be a 9-step process for the most part. Step 1, completed, not completed. And I tell them exactly where they went wrong, and I give them a new scope of work for what to do. But this is that's clearly different, and like you said, it's the reason why you don't want to do it yourself or have somebody not qualified.
So let me ask you this, because this is to me, it's still a kind of a gray area.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the oversight for mold? This is interesting topic here. We're going to get into this a bit. Give it to me straight.
There is none.
There is none.
None.
Okay, so the FDA,
none.
Nothing.
US EPA, nothing.
EPA. There is no regulation on how these remediations are supposed to be performed. Am I correct?
Yes, and on top of that, and even more importantly, on how the lab analysis is to be interpreted.
Right. So it's all just.
Yep.
It's almost like it's in its infancy.
Yeah.
Yet it's been forever.
Yeah. There have been recognized standards that have been,
which is the ASTM.
It's like not even really anything.
Oh,
it's just mostly like kind of
bunch of guys got together and said, "Let's do this."
It's more like it's more like upstanding companies or known inspectors. They kind of go along the same lines of everything. But there is no regulation on what's required for interpreting a lab analysis, what's required for mold remediation at all.
So that alone is kind of scary.
It is, and anytime you hear somebody say that federal standards say this, they are lying to you.
Number one, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, and so the scary part of this is, from what we're trying to communicate here, is there's no big brother coming in to look at this. So it's really important that you find the most qualified person for this, because you can get lied to, you can get robbed, there's so many things going on here. So whoever, like Bret pointed out earlier, it's real important to keep your inspector separate from your remediator, and also separate from your clearance.
No, inspector does the clearance because
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. Thanks for correcting me there. So you can bring back your mold inspector for the clearance,
and it's
or another person.
And it's recommended to use that because if I did your initial report, I saw the initial project, I gave the scope of work, I'm going to make sure that it was done to my standards.
That's a good point.
But yeah, like you were saying, I know the reputation of mold inspectors around town.
Yeah.
We are deal killers.
Yeah.
That's like, I see the look on the listing agent's face when I walk in. But that's because there's a lot of mold inspectors that have given the business a bad name.
Same with home inspectors.
Yeah. And I find, I don't know what it is. I think I've been in business for long enough where I have a very sustainable business. I have a good clientele base. I don't rely on scare tactics to sell samples, to sell my business, because I've seen all the time where, a $300 job, and then next thing you know, the mold inspector from some unscrupulous company is selling $1,000 worth of air samples because they can.
Yeah.
I would never do that, and it's important, like you said, to find somebody that's reputable, that understands the business and is not going to scare your clients or, anybody because they want to make more money. First and foremost for me, health and safety are my biggest priority, but I'm never going to blow anything out of proportion.
No, you don't need to.
No.
There's no need to.
There's no need to.
Be an alarmist.
No.
I had a guy call me the other day, a realtor, and he's like, so yeah, the inspector, I'm looking for a new inspector. The one I use now is an alarmist. He just blows everything. I'm like, well, sorry to hear that, but just because you're good at being an inspector doesn't mean you're good at relaying the messages.
Right.
Talking to people.
I don't know what it is about the mold inspection business, because I just done so many jobs, follow-up jobs, where it was unnecessary what they've recommended and what they've reported. Yeah. I don't know if it's they thought they were going to get into a business and make a ton of money and then realized it's harder, and if I can just sell the scare tactics, then I can do it, but I don't know what it is, but it is important to get somebody that's honest, reputable out there.
So here's a quick little story that might give you a little chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
My brother lives over in Torrance.
Yeah.
And he says he comes home and his whole bathroom ceiling caved in right above the toilet. I'm like, oh, good thing you weren't on the throne. Apparently there was a leak upstairs that went on for a long time, and it just saturated the drywall, and the nails wouldn't hold it, the screws wouldn't hold it, and everything just fell straight down. He's like, holy shit. So they had to put him up at a hotel for a few days. It was a pretty extensive job.
Yeah.
So that just happened like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, damn.
It wasn't in there.
Yeah. So the whole ceiling collapsed on him. I'm like, wow, at least you're okay.
Yeah.
At least you weren't sitting there.
Right.
That would have sucked. Yeah, that would have really sucked. Man's peace.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. That's our one area of peace.
It'll certainly ruin your day.
And let's see, what else we want to talk about here? I want to ask some questions. Have you ever done a grow house?
Yes, I have.
Let's talk about grow houses. I've heard some stories about how bad those can be.
First off, they are sketchy.
Hang on. What's a grow house?
Oh.
I forgot to put a little, magic marker on that one. A grow house. Homes that previously were used for growing cannabis, a.k.a. weed.
Illegally, yeah.
Yep. So this is when somebody goes into a residential dwelling and turns it into a weed factory.
And absolutely destroy the house.
Destroys the house.
Yeah. Well, first off, my first couple that I went to, I remember the first one I went to. The agent was saying, or the representative, whoever hired, I forget if it was the manager, the owner, whoever. They said there's a lockbox on there. If you go around back, there is a little, padlock that you can unlock together. So these are rated houses. They're boarded up, and it is, this is some criminal thing going on here. And you go in the back, and all the windows are boarded up. There's just remnants of growing everywhere and lights going everywhere. The place has been destroyed. There's ducting everywhere. There's usually one bedroom with like a mattress on the floor, because that's where whoever was guarding the place was there. Yeah. And and you're sitting, I just remember thinking, like, I hope nobody thinks that there's still something in here and it's worth coming in and trying to come in.
Got to bring you 9.
Right. And like, it's dark, there's no electricity. And I've even heard where the people, they said, I was going to get $2,000 a month for the place. They told me they pay me $10,000, and just to not ask them any questions about it. And then what do? They do like $150,000 worth of damage to the house. Right. Right.
Yeah. I've heard some stories about home inspectors ignoring circles on the ceilings and stuff like that. And, and then they got a phone call later.
Yeah.
And the whole house had to be gutted.
Yeah. Well, should we tell them what they actually do to the house to make it a grow house?
Sure.
Okay. So first, well, they're growing weed. So every single part of that house is going to be used to grow weed. And to grow weed, you need light, you need water, and you need ventilation to keep that air circulating through there. So first, they rip out all of your electrical and run all new electrical through from the panel to every single room to put in these massive light structures. Second, they rip out all the ceilings and do all this really intricate duct work throughout the entire house. They break down walls to make rooms bigger. They build false walls to make rooms smaller. And then also they're running plumbing to every single room to fill these big bins up that have all the plants in them. And they line them with tarp because that's the moisture barrier of the century, right?
Yeah.
Tarp never fails.
Yeah.
And basically that's what they do to the house. And then you'll see holes cut in every wall. You'll see all the writing from the police that say how many plants were in each room. I mean, a little bedroom, about the size of this studio here, maybe twice this size, 1,000 plants, 750 plants. Like they pack up.
I've never been in one with the police writing on the wall. That sounds
really?
interesting.
Oh yeah, I've done several, mostly out in like Hesperia.
Yeah, if I'm in one, if I think I'm in one, I'll typically find remnants of lighting outside, like tucked in behind the garage. Oh. Like I'll see an old light just laying there. I'm like, that looks like, I think this might have been a grow house. You guys need to investigate that.
So you're talking about a house that somebody's buying that was previously a grow house.
Yeah, and it wasn't disclosed or someone didn't know.
All right.
Well, that's okay. We can go both ways.
So what I'm talking about is a condemned house that's post-raid.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Grow house.
All right.
So when the city finds out that there's an illegal grow house, what they do is first off, they bust everybody there. They take out all the plants. They board up everything. Water, gas, and electricity get shut off until you get a ton of reports because it has to show that and it's kind of a bummer. They won't let you do anything to the home without getting all these reports.
Right.
And they're really vague because they're just environmental reports.
Yep.
And the thing about the environment and contaminants in the environment, mold is one of them. But there's so many other things, and I called it just city manager. Like, so you're saying a clear environmental report. What are you talking about here? Well, anything in the environment that can make you sick. Like, what? I'm like, I do mold inspection. Can that knock off? And like, I've worked out with several city managers that, if I do a mold inspection, it's clear I do air samples and the majority of the living spaces, and that's clear enough. But I've never been in. I can't recall one that was a grow house. It's been remodeled, and now somebody's buying it. And I've been only in the ones that are.
I see.
Like the raid happened the week before.
I've seen a couple over the years, not too many, but and I've always been triggered. My evidence was there's weed lights out back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like they were for the garage.
Yeah.
Because nothing's changed in the garage. It just looks like an old garage.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was in there. So you might want to dig into that some more. So I let them know.
Yeah. When I'm there for the ones that I've done, they're still, because they're clearing out the plants, but they can't get everything. There's weed all over the closets, all over the ground, everywhere. There's still.
You getting the contact high just by walking in? Come on now.
Set it on fire. But there's still the tubs there full of water sometimes. And
wow.
Yeah. It's bad. It's bad.
It just destroys a house. Wow.
Yeah, it's thousands of dollars. And but I would imagine if I was in, it's serious, because when I'm doing a normal house, I'm looking at areas of potential water intrusion, which some of the main areas are wherever there's plumbing. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be your bathrooms and kitchens.
Right.
Now, if you've turned every room into having plumbing, now every room is a potential subset.
That's a much more expensive inspection for you.
Yeah.
What's a fee for something like that, if you don't mind? That's...
So okay. I'd have to get into a little deeper, but just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
$800.
Okay.
$800, and that includes 2 samples, because there's one city that I said, this place, they've gutted everything. So everything's very visible down to the stud, even though they didn't have electricity. Mm-hmm. And I told the city inspector, he said, we want clear air samples. You can't really do that economically because that's an air sample in every single room. And this is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house with a living room. You know what I mean? So I said, if I don't find any signs of mold anywhere and I do, upper level and lower level main living spaces or hallways, is that adequate? He said, that's fine. So that saves, instead of having to do 14 air samples, only have to do 2.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of general, somewhere in there. But unless it's bad.
Right.
If it's bad, then you're talking about a couple thousand.
Right.
Yeah. I'm talking about if I go to one that's been gutted and they're just trying to get the report to the city for the electricity to go back on.
Right. All right, let me go back. I want to show you a report that I had done. So I want to this leak. I was called for this job, and I just did a mold inspection here. I didn't do the home inspection. Mm-hmm. Someone else that did the home, and they referred me. And I go in there, and I'm looking under this sink, and there's a good picture of it right here.
Yeah.
This was actively wet, and the person living there had their stuff under there. So I know they've been going in and out of the cabinet. Mm-hmm. And the odor that came out of that cabinet was just horrible. So this has been going on for so long. So this is what I was trying to explain to everybody listening and watching is these little things turn into big things. And if you just ignore it, and when you open a cabinet and you just get smacked in the face by this odor,
yeah,
you might want to look into that. Start by taking all of your hundreds of pounds of storage out of there. First of all, don't try to determine anything when it's full of storage. Take everything out, grab a flashlight, and just take a good look and look for a leak. Run your faucets. Let the drain pipe fill with water. Sometimes the faucets themselves are leaking from underneath the counter.
Yeah.
And a lot of faucets leak from inside, and they'll drip just into the cabinet. You won't even know it unless you look.
Move the faucet.
Yeah.
If it's loose.
Yeah, move the faucet, move the drain pipes. All these things can be loose and just improperly installed. So it's a real simple way to save yourself a lot of problems because my protocol on this was remove the whole vanity, the whole bathroom sink, countertop, cabinet, everything. It all had to be removed because it's most likely affected the subflooring below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's saturated like that.
And it was on a second floor.
Yeah.
I didn't see any issues below in the ceiling. But it's definitely turned into. I got the right mind to call this customer and ask him how that went and see what else they found. So, but anyway, I think they were going to remodel it, so that's probably why they didn't call me back for a clearance.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's how simple it can be to fix these things if you just stay on top of it.
Oh yeah.
But if you ignore your stuff and you're just gonna wind up. The moisture in there is right there. Jeez. 216.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, it was still wet.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, and I noticed this. Oh, that's not a problem. Why is there a cup underneath the? That's kind of an indicator that might be a bigger issue. So I think there's a drip going on there,
right.
And that was the toilet.
And then you also hear where situations, the seller said they knew nothing about it. They didn't, but they put a cup underneath it to get.
Yeah,
that happens all the time.
Most of the time when I find water damage, I honestly don't think the sellers knew.
Right.
It's just, people just don't know where to look.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I think you had sent me, I'm not going to show the...
yeah, we can't show the...
Right. Yeah, I'll get that. I won't do that. I'll go right to here. So, let's see if you had any photos in here.
Yeah. This is a failed clearance as well.
Yeah. I like the plastic.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So do you think it was once touching the ceiling and it fell down or what?
Yeah, it was, but they tried to use one little, they used painter's tape across popcorn ceiling.
It's going to work.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I sent these ones to you is because 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time I do a failed clearance, it's because they didn't use professional remediation.
Right.
Professional remediators, I rarely will have an issue with their clearance. Maybe, it happens every once in a while. They get a little bit of an oversight. Right. They didn't take enough material out or something, but it's really rare. But look at this. Scroll down there again. See that bottom picture on the left?
This one?
Below that.
Oh, this one. Okay.
They're asking for a clearance. And look at that one right above that. That is the window where there's mold growing all over the window.
Right.
This job was actually the highest spore counts that I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Years ago, I used to work for this company. They were kind of, I don't know, a couple of rich guys, and they just wanted to buy properties. And I mean, these are distressed properties. These are all properties from people who are in trouble. They had to get out of their houses, or they couldn't get out, and
Right.
because they were just so bad. The condition of the homes were so bad that they couldn't fix them, and they just had to go. I walked into one of those houses one day, and this was the last one I did for them. I quit after this one. I walked in, and I get smacked in the face by the thickest, heaviest scent of mold that I've ever experienced. And it was a full family living there.
Oh my God. That's so terrible.
It was kids,
Yeah.
mom and dad, teenagers. They were all living there.
Yeah.
No masks on, nothing.
Wow.
Windows were closed. So I'll be right back. I go get my respirator. I didn't enter the house without a respirator.
Right.
The whole time I had a respirator on.
Yeah. And for people that have never experienced a heavy, like that cabinet where there's heavy mold growth in there, it hits you.
And you'll start coughing pretty quick.
And then like I find
sneezing, coughing.
I wear protective equipment, but when I'm doing a general mold inspection around a house, I'm not going to wear a respirator the whole time. No. But if I find an issue, then I'm going to change. But sometimes I get in those situations where it hits you in the face, and then like for the next couple of hours, I can like feel it.
Oh yeah,
it's weird.
I'll feel weird the rest of the day. Sometimes
it's weird. Like you just feel it, like it's like you could still smell it.
Yep.
For like 6 hours.
So this house that I walked into with the family, I look up, and all I could see was stained ceilings, some of which were missing, sagging, hanging drywall, covered with mold. Wow. You could see the floor framing on the second floor, 2-story house. You could see all that. Kitchen, same problem. Bathrooms, everywhere. And there was a family living there.
Wow. Jeez.
That was the worst condition I ever seen.
Yeah, that's
and
awful.
those people, they better hope that, they probably were affected, had no idea they were being affected by it.
Yeah.
And the simple part of this, most of the damage came from just needing a roof repair. Oh, yeah, and it was a very basic roof. I'm pretty sure it would have cost no more than $7,000 to re-roof that house. And the roofing that was done was just so badly done, and that's why it was leaking. And then they just left all the mold in there.
Wow.
Just festering. And a lot of areas it was still wet under the sinks. There's still active leaks everywhere. Worst thing I ever saw.
Yeah,
and that was the worst place this company sent me to. And the guy shows up in his, what was he driving back then? Maserati. Yeah. Gets out of his car. I was just like, whew.
So he was renting it to them?
No. Oh. He was the guy that hired me to go inspect it because he wanted to buy it because it was a distressed home and they had to get out.
Yeah, wow.
So he was trying to, what they do is they would try to work out a deal, I think, with the owners, which I think with the people that live there. But they just couldn't afford to fix anything.
Yeah.
They had no income. They were just poverty, total poverty. I mean, the poverty
Kids
level.
There too?
Kids.
That's terrible.
Kids, teenagers.
Yeah. I mean, like one thing I thought, if it were me, I have the option to get up and get out. Right. For the kid, what are they going to do? Mom, I'm not living here anymore, That's awful. That's terrible.
But I just had to stop working for that client because the one they sent me to prior to that it wasn't a mold issue, but it was, I went into a crawl space. Well, I tried to go into a crawl space. It was infested with pigeons.
Oh, jeez.
They were attacking. They were trying to attack. As I put my arm in, they were like running towards.
Yeah.
That's how bad these houses were. I said, dude, I don't need your business. I don't need to expose myself to this kind of filth.
Right.
It was so bad. And for weeks, they had all their people trying to call me to get me back. No way. We like your reports. We like how thorough. Forget it.
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing with you guys. And I had to chase them for money.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what's the the worst you've encountered in a crawl space? Dead or alive?
No people yet. haven't done that. Crawl spaces, the worst is sewage leaks.
Yeah.
Which just happened on Tuesday. Did a five unit building and had a crawl space throughout. And I walked up to the left side of the building where I noticed there was a crawl space, and that's where the main plumbing was coming in, and I could see the sewer cleanouts on the left side, and then bam, get hit in the face with sewage. And as I'm experiencing that, the maintenance guy comes over. He's like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, they found a drain pipe leak." Oh, I'm like, "Oh, okay." I think they did. Yeah, I think you're right. And so I go check it out. And there was, I see a good 1/3 of the crawl space was 3 inches deep in sewage water.
Oh, man.
So I couldn't go, obviously, all the way around because I'm not going to crawl through dirty water.
No.
No one's going to do that. But
No.
I did find one pipe that was the main source of the leak, but I think those other ones too, I couldn't see, that were probably under the water.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was pretty nasty.
That's nasty.
So that's typically the worst. But that was not the worst sewage problem I found. In the past, I've actually seen I called it Lake Poopy Poo because, dude, it was so big and so deep. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This crawl space was really tall. And all I see is this like black thing. And I took a picture. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. So I had to poke my head in even further because I knew there was a leak on there because you could smell it. Mm-hmm. You can always smell it from the outside because of the crawl space vents.
Yeah.
Because it just has a bad odor. So I looked closer. I'm like, holy shit. 2/3 of the crawl space were underwater.
Wow.
And it was all sewage. Black water. Just been, how long it takes to fill up a crawl space with sewage? That's been going on for like over a year.
That's so nasty. It's so nasty.
So that's probably the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I did go into a crawl space once, and there were skunks in there.
Oh yeah, I haven't had that.
I did do that, and the one time I actually, that happened twice. 2 times I've been there with skunks. I actually have YouTube videos on this, by the way. You can watch if you haven't seen them. And one of them, I actually had my robot in there, and I went around a corner, and there's a big shit that skunk had to be 3 feet long, Jeez. 2.5, 3 feet long with the tail out.
Yeah,
at least that big.
Wow.
And I cornered him with my robot. So I'm like, I don't want him to spray my robot because then I'd have to clean it. So I slowly start backing up, and then when it sensed it had just enough room to get by, it ran right by me, and I just kept following it, and I found 3 more in there.
Wow,
there's a whole little family in there.
What city?
That was.
Is that one of the hill communities?
No, I think that was Van Nuys.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think that was in Van Nuys. And then I had a helper at one time working with me, and he loved doing crawl spaces. Mm-hmm. He was all about because he thought it was interesting looking for shit. And so I sent him in there, and I sent him in one side, and I had the robot going in the other side, and I saw the skunks. I had to run around like, dude, get out of there.
If you want to ride home, you gotta
get out. Yeah, so that happened, and there was a different time where I was by myself, and I entered a crawl space through the interior closet, and as I'm crawling, as soon as I go in, I always want to make sure I'm alone. So I always use my flashlight, and I scope the whole thing as far as I can to see if anything's moving around or anything's fuzzy.
Yeah.
Anything's fuzzy. Sure enough, way across, I'm in the middle of the crawl space in the far rear corner. There was a skunk just slowly walking around. I probably just woke him up with the flashlight.
Yeah.
They're nocturnal, So I was like, okay, time to go. So I just get right back out. Sorry, bud, I can't inspect your crawl space because you got skunks in there. I don't feel like getting sprayed or attacked or anything.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was pretty good. And so yeah, that's my best crawl space story. How about you?
Well, I mean, sewage is always the worst when we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just
so you've seen it.
I've seen it. I don't crawl through it, and I'm not gonna. I've had one client. They said it was so bad last week, but it seems better, so you should be fine to go under there. And I just take a look with my flashlight and like.
No, it's not better.
I don't care if you're used to the smell. I'm not going in there,
Yeah.
But as far as critters, it's just always, at first it's shocking because you don't know what it is, and you see these glowing eyes looking at you.
Typically they'll run away.
Yeah.
Unless it's a raccoon.
Yeah. Oh God.
They may challenge you.
Yeah.
I haven't run into one.
Yeah.
No bears either.
Hear about that? What was it up in like Pasadena or out in Sierra Madre? Some inspector was under, and there's like a mountain lion.
Oh shit, dude! A mountain lion.
Yeah.
You're toast.
Yeah.
You're caught by
And they had to like vacate the house because the mountain lion wouldn't come out for like 3 days.
Oh, I do remember
moved
that.
Yeah.
You know what? Now I remember that. Yeah.
But also with my crawl space inspections, they're not as, I don't have to go around as much as you do.
Right.
Because you have to look at all the foundation.
Yeah.
And
Look at
everything
all
like
kinds of
that.
stuff.
Where I'm mostly looking at, I could, I
Under
have
bathrooms and stuff.
Yeah, I have to look at the plumbing, and then I can kind of just get a general idea of whether the soil's damp or not, and I can look at the perimeter. I don't need to go up to it to see if there's water intrusion from drainage. Or
Sure,
like that. So I don't spend as much time in there as you.
Yeah, but just in case you're not aware, because I've seen people do this, it's a dumb move. If there's water in a crawl space and the soil's really, really damp, don't go in there. Because if there's electrical touching, bare electrical touching that, inspectors are getting killed over that.
Yeah,
I've heard stories about that in the past.
Yeah, I just don't.
Not necessarily inspectors. It could be electricians, plumbers, whatever.
Yeah,
because you're gonna get zapped.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful, and I tell people that I'm not risking my life for you. I have no problem telling someone that.
Yeah, I had somebody that told me they wanted me to look at the roof. There's a 2-story or 3-story apartment building, and I said I don't have a ladder tall enough for that. Like, well, you could set your ladder on the stairs. Going up the stairs.
Go right ahead.
And I was like, I'm not. No. He's like, well, that's your job. I'm like,
no, I'm not a daredevil. I'm not a stunt man.
My ladder is not meant to be at the edge of a stair of a 3-story building trying to climb.
And what about the suicide ladders on the side of buildings?
Yeah.
I'm very picky of which one of those I'll climb.
Right. You get to the top and they're like,
gotta grab them and pull
up. Yeah. Those. Yeah. And I've climbed up several of those, learned my lesson. I mean, I'll go up them, but when you get to the top and you realize, oh my, this thing's barely hanging on here.
Just so people know, getting on a roof's typically easier than getting off.
Yeah, much easier.
Even when you use your own ladder.
Yeah.
Because if that's a really steep pitch and you only have the ladder this high above the gutter.
Yeah.
And when you come back down, you got to grab onto something.
Yeah.
I always extend mine up like 2 feet so
yeah.
I can grab the top of it and kind of have a base.
Yeah. And I'll try and do whatever I can to inspect whatever I can, but people got to realize, our clients got to realize that we have to ensure our safety. And especially, not everybody, not only if it's a big company with their employees, they have to manage them.
Sure.
But even with somebody that's, the owner operator of the company, if I fall off a ladder and break my leg, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I can't work for however long it takes for my leg to heal.
That's a long time.
I
wanted to see do you use this kind of pump?
No, I use a different type.
Okay.
Same company. That's Stefan, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Same company, but a different type. Mine's an external and uses the hose.
Okay.
This one, I think, those ones are preset, right?
Yes.
So that one, you tell how many liters you want and it just does it.
Yep.
Mine
for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So mine, because I have to factor in the environment that I'm in, I like to use the one where I use my own timer and set my own gauge. And basically, so we can just tell them how it works, is what these machines do is you have the air sample cartridge. So it's a little cylinder, and what it does is that on one side, there's 2 sides of it, one for the air to come in and one for the air to come out. And in the middle of that is a collection plate where anything that passes through there gets collected onto that plate. And then when that goes to the lab, they crack that open and put that plate under a microscope and see how much mold, identify the mold and count what's on there.
Right.
So to get an accurate reading of what's going on in the environment, we have to send, say, 75 liters of air through that for outside and inside. And I do that by doing, my aerosols are 15 liters per minute, run for 5 minutes.
Yeah, these are also 15 for 10. We do them for 10.
Yeah. But I adjust mine because if I'm in a clearance, like doing a clearance, the work that's been done in there, there's too many like particles in the air from the
particulates.
So it'll clog it up. And I learned this a long time ago. The lab, they have a detection limit. So if there's too many drywall particles in there, they'll say, Stachybotrys detected, but they won't give me the count. And the count is what I need to know whether it passes or not. So I'll lower it down to 45 liters in those cases. Or I see that you have the cavity, these ones. So basically, if you're not seeing the video, this fits, the cartridge fits onto this tube, and then you stick the end of the tube into the ceiling or wall cavity and able to pull the air through there.
Sure.
Because the ceiling and wall cavity, you had to drill the hole first.
Right.
There's so much particles in there of building material.
Just the drywall dust alone.
Yeah. So I'll only run these for a minute.
Yeah.
And only do 15. And people will say, is that enough? Well, we have to be able to get a count of the mold spores.
Right.
If we're just getting detection, that's not enough to interpret the lab.
Right.
So basically, sorry, got sidetracked there, but that's what that is. This is an air pump that allows you to pull air through these cartridges to get an air sample.
Right. And this here is a swab sample.
Yes.
It's simple, just like cleaning out your ears,
Yeah. Think if you're just listening, think about a medical Q-tip.
Yeah.
A long medical Q-tip into a little plastic, what are those things called? Cylinder, what's it called?
A container?
Beaker, yeah.
Sterile polyester swab.
Yeah.
Dry transport system. That's what they call it. I think it's the first time I read that.
Yeah, like a test tube, like it's a plastic.
Yeah.
It is sealed off test tube. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some of the tools that Bret uses and I use on occasion. And as far as you mentioned your camera.
Yeah.
So tell me about your camera. You had a backstory behind that.
So
how you do your inspections.
Right. My camera as a tool is not necessarily for detecting mold or anything like that. I use my camera for efficiency of my inspection process, where you'll see other mold inspectors, they'll have a notepad and they're going through and they're writing down, and it takes them a long time to do the inspection because I know that your agent's there, you're an agent, you have to be there for the inspection and your time is valuable. Right. I'm not trying to rush my inspection whatsoever, but using the camera allows me to not have to take notes. The way I do
you're building your report with photos, and then you can type it out later.
Every home that I do, I have the exact same process as far as how I go through the home.
Sure.
My camera tells me the story, right? Here's the picture of the room. Here's the picture of the area. Here's the picture of the mold. Here's the picture of the moisture. And really, if I had an apprentice and I had them go out and do an inspection and they followed my process, they could give me the pictures and I'd be able to write their report as long as they follow my process. So the reason I brought this is just because I try and be as efficient as possible in getting the inspection done in the best amount of time. And then on top of that, I'm able to provide you with the pictures. Right. I've reviewed so many reports that, here's his write-up. Like, why didn't he give you a picture?
I know. It's like someone doing a sewer inspection with no video.
Yeah.
So hang on, I'll show you mine. So this is a camera I've been using for years. Check it out. It's waterproof.
Oh, nice.
It's got a great flash. I've dropped it off ladders. I think it's got a 13-foot drop rating.
Really?
It's a really good camera.
Nice.
If you're ever going to upgrade, I'd suggest you spend the money on that because if it's raining outside, you're still good. That's one of my main tools.
Yeah.
That and my flashlight.
Yeah.
And that thing inside my head there.
The other benefit is I like having the.
Oh, okay.
Because
you got to flip.
I could see around things that I can't stick
that's
my
true.
head in.
Yeah, I usually have to just go like this.
And just snap a whole bunch of pictures.
Take a look at it.
That works too.
So yeah, tools are good, and don't forget the Hydro Shark.
Yeah.
This I found to come in pretty handy for certain situations. What situations do you use it in?
I love that tool. Mine, I have a different brand of it, but it's the same exact thing. Yours beeps when it.
Yeah.
So the handheld one gives you the actual moisture reading, where this one just will beep. You can't really hear it.
It's the light's going off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not picking up through the microphone.
Right.
And so what I use this for is it's long, so I don't have to bend down. It helps me move through the property, and I use it to
keeps
get
you it just keeps you moving.
Keeps you moving, and you can also reach, like say if there's a washer dryer, you can reach between the washer and dryer to hit the wall back there that you wouldn't be able to get your arm into.
Right.
I love this tool.
It's also a weapon.
It's also a weapon.
Look at those pointers.
I know. I open it up when I'm walking through some sketchy neighborhoods.
Look at the size of these prongs on here. Yeah. Trust me, that will cause some personal damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't mess with us.
Yeah. And so mine has a really loud beeper. And how's the inspection going? Well, if you hear beeping, not going well.
That's a good way to look at it. I'm glad you have a sense of humor at work.
Yeah. But then I tell them, but if you hear like just 2 beeps, that's just me making sure the batteries are working. And I test it on my arm.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. But anyway, you got any other thing else you want to talk? We just talked for a good, we're at 1 hour and 40 minutes already.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I think we covered, everything I wanted to cover. I don't think we missed out on anything. I think we explained to everybody, what the process is, and stop panicking until you have all the facts. So there's no need to flip out or stress. Ignoring it does not make it go away.
Nope.
Find the source of the leak, stop the bleeding, in other words, and then remove all the damage. The number one problem I find in most houses is there was a leak, it's no longer leaking, but all the damaged materials were never remediated, which means they were not removed.
Yep.
And that's what you want to make sure you look into, because just because you don't see mold facing you doesn't mean it's not on the other side of that drywall.
Yep.
And that's why Bret was we're looking at some of Bret's photos earlier, showing what a proper remediation is and what a non-proper remediation is. So unfortunately, it sucks.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
It happens.
It happens. It sucks. But you just want to get it done by someone who knows what they're doing, who has a good reputation. Don't go for the cheapest guy.
And don't go for anybody that has any affiliation or anything to do with remediation. Yeah. I've had them set up with 2 different companies, and then you look at the Secretary of State, their filings, and you see it's the same person. I've seen that. And then also, like you said, don't go for the least expensive, because those ones, they're doing something.
Right.
They got something going on. I saw a company that offers like 8 air samples for $165.
What?
And it's like, how is that?
He's negative before he walks in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, negative cash flow.
Yeah,
because negative cash flow before he walks in the house.
Yeah, because you have to pay the lab.
And you got to pay for the samples.
Yeah.
I think the samples cost more than that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and look out for that. And when you're reviewing reports, think about it in a rational way.
Sure.
Because you can see when there's things that don't mess up, they don't line up, or, people claiming that there's federal regulation, red flag.
Right. Right.
Certain things like that. So
yeah, there is none.
Yeah. My main thing is health and safety overall.
Yeah.
But I keep things in proportion. I don't use scare tactics. I just want to make sure it's a safe environment, and what needs to be done is done. But I'm not going to scare your clients and let them know that they're, that's it. It's over.
Sure. Well, if somebody wants to hire you, how do they find you?
Golden State Mold Inspections. You can find me. Just Google the name. My website, goldenstatemoldinspections.com. Call me at 310-525-0619. I try to accommodate same day, next day. Sometimes if I'm busy, I can go out. It takes 2 days, but I try and be there as soon as possible.
How long does your lab take for test results typically?
So there's 2 parts of it. If you're doing like a specific area, those usually only take about 15, 20 minutes for the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
But the lab takes 3 business days.
I see.
They can expedite it. They just charge, of course, for that.
Yeah.
If you're doing a general mold inspection of the whole home, I can have the report out same day unless samples are taken.
Right. Yeah, you can't finish your report unless you have your samples.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Another thing most people don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I get the report? Because the samples ain't back yet.
Yeah. And if and they tell me, but basically what I say in cases where they don't want to take a sample where I recommend, which is fine. I just say I have to assume that this is dangerous, and I have to write my scope of work.
Right. They declined. They declined.
It needs containment protocol because I can't verify whether this is stachybotrys or not. So I have to assume that it is to ensure the safety of occupants.
Got it.
So
okay.
But
yeah. That's interesting. All right, so you got Bret's information. Once again, Bret Pfeifer, Golden State Mold Inspections, and this is John Laforme. You know me already. Home Inspection Authority, and thanks for listening. And like I said, there'll be a YouTube version of this eventually, and check it out. You'll see the photos and stuff and more visual aids that we just mentioned. But hey, thanks for coming, Bret.
Thanks for having me.
Very helpful,
Yeah.
and take care.
You too.